I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked. You can't have a successful career without knowing how to deal with the unexpected, and Unlocked is here to help you do that. If you're a person who sets goals that challenge you to fully reach your potential, this show is for you. This is a show about opening possibilities so that when you're hit with the unexpected, you have options from which to choose. You can learn more about the show on my website, madelineblair.com/unlockedtv. And there you can find all of the replays as well. And if you have topics that you'd like to have explored on the show, just email me at madeline@madelineblair.com. And of course, if you're curious about the background of this show, check out my book, Unlocked, Discover How to Embrace the Unexpected. You can get it on Kindle, audio, or paperback. If you'd like to explore what it means to build and nurture your resilience with me as a mentor, reach out directly to me to schedule a conversation. Again, Madeline@madelineblair.com. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter so that you can hear about all the offerings that are coming. Okay, let's get to our topic today. It's called Active Calm. The American Institute of Stress reports that about 33% of people report feeling extreme stress, with 77% of people experiencing stress that affects their physical health. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs says that more women, 8%, more women than men at 4%, will have PTSD at some point in their life, due in part to the types of traumatic events that women are more likely to experience, such as sexual assault. Our topic today is active calm. When I first read it, I thought it was an oxymoron. How can a person be both these things at once? The more I thought about it, examples sprang to mind. What about a doctor who is faced with an emergency? Is he calm as he is moving? How about a mother dealing with her family as they roughhouse at the table, spilling the milk jug? Can she retain her calm as she directs the cleanup? And what about the policeman who is facing a gun? Can she remain clear-headed enough to remember her training? We are designed to learn and grow from stress in our lives, but learning how to prepare ourselves for this is not part of the standard curriculum. That's why I have called upon my next guest, Dan Jones, and I am so anxious to talk with him. So let me bring him on screen. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, Madeline. How are you?
I am so well now that we've got things settled and we're going on the show. There are always 1,000 things to do beforehand, but we have them all done. So thank you so much and welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let me tell the audience a little bit about you, and then we'll get into our topic. Dan Jones is the owner and founder of Moving Stillness Healing Arts, LLC, a training business that teaches and promotes the fluid and graceful art of Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong, and Qigong. Dan is a retired law enforcement officer and security professional with over 38 years combined experience. Today, based on his own experience and extensive training, he has created, owns, and operates a training and educational business that specializes in Tai Chi moving, mindfulness, meditation, and resilience training for first responders, veterans, and people employed in high stress and high-risk professions. He is currently the Tai Chi research consultant for Johns Hopkins Medical Center. He's a certified medical Qigong, a Sifu of Tai Chi Chuan, internal Kung Fu, and Huanshuan Temple boxing for over 40 years, with extensive experience in teaching specifically for health issues such as PTSD, arthritis, pain management, and more. I can't wait to hear how he suggests we bring calm into our work schedules, especially when we feel behind. and the schedule doesn't stop. So again, welcome, Dan, to Unlocked.
Thank you.
Did you notice I got through all those names?
I was listening. You did a very good job. The pronunciation was pretty close and right on with some.
Oh, good. Because as I told you, I hadn't had a chance to rehearse. Oh, well, such is life. Well, before we get into our conversation, Dan, I want to alert the audience that when we get to the end of our conversation, you are actually going to give us a demonstration. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct.
So things that we can do ourselves. I'm excited about that. All right, let's jump in here. You know, we hear a lot about PTSD. The news is filled with situations where those in charge of crisis situations act inappropriately. Why is this happening? And is this new, or are we just able to see this more easily due to cameras and mobile phones and internet?
Well, first off, it's not new. In this high-tech age we live in, where at the right in your hand you can take videos and in an instant, it's being publicized a lot more. As far as I've been in law enforcement for a quarter of a century, and we work closely with the fire department. You know, we would often respond together. In those situations, first responders. Okay, I'll talk specifically about police officers. Every single day of our jobs, we go out with the risk of getting injured or, in the extreme circumstances, possibly killed, because we have to respond to the most gravest circumstances when it comes up. And in order to prepare for that, I have to say that being in law enforcement so long, the average officer doesn't have the training to the mental training that he got from the police academy, and even from his experiences on the road. Well, when I was in the police academy, I went to the State Police Academy, the Michigan State Police Academy, back in 1978. That's when I graduated. And most of the police training, it hasn't changed much, but there's a lot of advances in technology and such, and some in the training. But it's a lot of understanding laws and the bookwork, the physical training. They have things like patrol techniques where you go out and literally, we did it at an airport in a mock city, a building scene. Put you onto a lot of circumstances where you could ambushed, or you have a traffic stop, something happens, fire happens, all kinds of things like that. They do try to do the best they can to put you in, from a practical, safe perspective, to try to experience what would go on the road. But as we all know, especially in law enforcement and fire department, the actual learning comes when you graduate from the academy and you go out there on the road. Okay? And you can't totally prepare a person in a classroom from the way I described to be prepared for what you might encounter. First of all, you have to consider that all of us, whenever we see something, the first thing that happens in an instant is that it gets filtered through our own personal value judgments. That's a sum total of everything you've learned with all your senses from the time you're in your mother's womb, and you can hear her voice, to this moment and everything in between. And so that means that when you see something, you're going to see it a little bit different. I mean, you take, okay, for instance, at a traffic stop or in a corner, boom, you have a car crash. And then an officer shows up and you have witnesses. You divide the witnesses and you ask them what happened. You're going to have, if you got 5 witnesses, you're going to have 5 different stories that are similar. And you actively watched the accident. You saw it. Eyewitness. Okay, that's supposed to be accurate, right? But your value judgments, you have different value judgments. And that's not taken into account, especially in our training. I mean, we have a lot of physical training to try and handle what we can go up against. Now, coming ahead with Tai Chi. At first, when I first became a police officer, I was studying external martial arts. Growing up on the east side of Detroit, junior high school, I probably averaged 3 fights a week. It was gang territory. It was pretty dangerous. And my mother, she kept us safe, with an iron will. She knew where we were all the time. But by the time I finished college and got into the police academy, then it was just all external. And so go through the training. And then as soon as I get out, after about a year out, they put me on the cover because I was from Detroit. And I had friends that were, street people, that I kind of knew how to carry myself. So this was the first one of its type, and it was the last one of its type that they did. It was called Operation Live In. I moved in over a drug dealer. I was there 24/7, and my whole assignment in the beginning was to go out to different places and meet the worst of the worst and let them know that I'll buy anything. It doesn't matter whether it's stolen. So I was the fence. If you know what a fence is, they're the middleman between, when you're selling and somebody steals something, they got to, have the middleman. So after about 3 months, you can imagine the stress was quite severe. Okay?
Yeah.
I always had money. All the bad guys knew where I lived. They would come by all times of the night. I couldn't do anything without getting out of character, without running into some of these people. So I realized that all I was doing was external training, external martial arts, lifting weights. I was all yang. And yang, the term yin and yang, a lot of people have heard it. Yang is physical force, moving forward. Yin is yielding, softness. So because the training was all external and from a yang perspective, it wasn't balancing me. Everything holds its opposite, right? So the only reason you understand yang is because it's yin. So I realized that I needed to study internal. So in 1980, I started studying with a Tai Chi master, and then that became my internal journey. When I did that, I acquired a balance. Everything holds its opposite. If all you do is train externally, then you're not able to understand when it's time to yield, when it's time to be soft, when it's time to listen, when it's time to be still. All you know is yang. If I want to solve this problem, I got to move forward. Everything is the same. So I had to have balance. I was out of balance. When you only know one side, you're vulnerable to the other side that you don't understand. So I don't know if I got off topic a little bit. I'm trying to give you a background as to what happens. And most officers don't get my training. As a matter of fact, I transferred to another department after a while because the state police was only highway patrol. And being from Detroit, I wanted more activity. I wanted to be in a city environment. And those officers, when they saw me doing Tai Chi and doing my slow movements, they like laughing. What is he doing? Snickering and everything. They couldn't understand because they had never had that training. So all they have is their own value judgments, what they learn as police officers, and their experience on the road. Now, you hear officers talk about a sixth sense, okay? Now, that sixth sense, yes, they can acquire, because your senses get heightened, all of your senses get heightened because you have to be out there right up front, no matter what. Okay? And so all they do is go one speed when they get out there. Now, all these experiences that they have, there's a saying about experiences. One can have 1,000 different experiences or the same experience 1,000 times. So everything they see is from their experience. So they go in and the experience. It's good, but it's a hindrance too, because you've experienced this one thing before maybe 100 times, and it's always been the same result. But this one time, what you see is not what it really is. Now, the only way to be able to differentiate from that is through balance, through internal and external training. That talks, the internal Kung Fu or Tai Chi Chuan is about breath work. It's about the mind, the body, and cultivating this energy called Qi. It's a life force, an internal force. And it's based on traditional Chinese medicine. So it's based on a system that has over 5,000 year history in healing. So it's pretty sound. And when you train, I'm sorry, did you?
No, go, keep going.
Okay. When you practice from an internal and external perspective, then you acquire a balance mentally, physically, and spiritually. Now, spiritually, I'm talking about your spirit. Some people, they don't have any desire to get up in the morning. Some people are just, rainbows and happy all the time. They have their flame is strong. They have a very strong spirit. And when you get beaten down, that spirit weakens. And everything is connected. The mind is connected to the body is connected to the spirit. If one is damaged, then they all three are damaged to a certain point. Now, the breathing, I can't say enough about mindful breathing, not just breathing. People say, oh, I'm breathing. Yeah, I know. I'm alive. I breathe. Yeah, you are. Okay. But the average person breathes from up here, chest breathing. Okay. And that's life sustaining. But as far as nourishing all the internal organs, having a direct access to your parasympathetic nervous system, that, by the way, we can access anytime we want. Okay? And to oxygenate all the cells of the body and the brain, I mean, it's abdominal breathing. Abdominal breathing does that. So mindful abdominal breathing, and the posture comes into play too. You can't be all slouchy and do it. You have posture in play. But when you put all those things together, yes.
No, I just have to interrupt you because you're just getting so much. I'm like, whoa, my goodness. I want to come back to the yang and yin.
Okay.
I've never heard it described so simply and clearly, that it's the yang is the moving forward, the yin is the yielding. That's amazing, because that when I think about being in any kind of management situation, there are times when you must be aggressive, you must push and then there are times when you have to listen. And that's, I would assume from what you're describing, that's a yielding. Okay, I'm listening. Let it come to me. I may still come back aggressively and push back, but it's that balance. I love that. That's really very beneficial to my thinking when I try to help managers learn that listening is a part of management. So I want to thank you for that. There was another point I want to make, but it's gone now. So I just got so excited about, I know what it was. Now, you're going to think I'm absolutely crazy. You were talking about eyewitnesses and how an eyewitness you'll have 5 people and there'll be 5 different witnessing. I often will work with people where I tell them we see the world differently because of who we are. And I'll ask, and I've done this, I'll be talking to a whole big audience and I'll say, you guys on this side of the room, I want you to look around this auditorium as if you're the cleaning lady. And what do you see? Then you guys on this side, I want you to imagine that you are a thief. Look around this auditorium. And what do you see? And it's amazing. They see different things. And your point about it comes from our values. Well, I mean, I was just having them play act 2 different roles, and still they saw different things. So I just want to make that comment. Just a little addition.
Well, please, interrupt. I get on the flow. Okay, it's called meditation in motion, and it starts to flow. And so when you want to interrupt me, hey, please.
I just do it.
Signs, yes.
Okay, I got it. Well, my next question was, even though you were a police officer for many years, you now go back and you work with them. I suspect you have already said why you do that, but let me just give you an opportunity to expand on that, because I think that's a really important point for you.
Thank you. When I first created TC, the acronym is TC Okay?
TC.
TC Tai Chi, moving, mindfulness, meditation, and resilience training. That's kind of a mouthful to say every single time.
Yeah.
One of the doctors I was working with from Johns Hopkins, he says, TC. Oh, okay, there we go. We got it. Okay, so when I first created the program, I specifically directed it at law enforcement. That's firefighters, law enforcement, first responders. But I started with law enforcement because one of the things, especially now with the way law enforcement has taken so many horrible hits as far as making mistakes, bad shootings, accidental deaths, things like that. Now, those types of things, I want to say that when you talk about 350 million people in the United States and all of the millions of law enforcement officers across the state, that type of thing, unfortunately, is not new amongst law enforcement officers. They know that you're going to have a percentage of mistakes. And every now and then, you got a very, very small percentage of officers who should not be police officers because of their attitudes and beliefs. But that is the minute minority. Law enforcement is a calling. I say at 85, over 85% of the law enforcement officers do it because it's a calling, not just a job. I mean, you have to choose to help the public, to put yourself between the general public and danger. That has to be a choice to do that, and you do it day in and day out. That type of stress, the average citizen doesn't understand. And so I wanted to help law enforcement officers because this type of training, my goal, okay, especially now that this study is complete, right? Well, I'll talk about the study in a minute, but my goal is to get this into police academies, okay? That was my goal when I started this, and it still is. But I understand that I started with the most extreme level of stress, PTSD. Now you have minor stress, you have anxiety, all those are lower forms, but when you develop a program that can address the most extreme form of stress, you can modify it for almost any situation that has to do with mild anxiety to extreme PTSD and everything in between. So that was my goal, is to get it in the police academy. So I had to start out by teaching it in my Tai Chi, my studios and things. And I've taught some officers that I knew back then, not on a group level, but like one-on-one. They would be in my Tai Chi classes. As a matter of fact, there's a couple that are still Tai Chi instructors when I certified them many years ago. And I connect with them every so often. But there has to be a duality about the training. Okay, remember, duality, everything holds its opposite. As soon as you create something, you create its opposite. You wouldn't know that this was the front of my hand if I didn't have the back of my hand. You wouldn't know daytime if there wasn't nighttime to compare it to. So nothing is singular. Everything has a duality in nature. The police academies basically deal with the yang aspect. They don't deal with the yin aspect. The only time breathing comes in is when you're doing shooting at the range. They'll tell you to breathe in, breathe out some of it, hold it, squeeze the trigger. And they try to tell you that we had some classes about surviving a shooting and how to try and adjust your breath. But it was from a perspective that they didn't know that much about mindful breathing, about the process of meditation. So that's why that's the reasons I wanted to get into the academy and to be able to make this a part right from Jump Street, right straight out of the box, out of the academy. And then I give the program for sustainability to train instructors in this method. And so at first, it was trained. Every police department has a training officer that's in charge of training. I would train the training officers that could go to their respective departments and teach the officers, because I can't be everywhere all the time. So go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I think it's remarkable on your part that you created the program and you're demonstrating its efficacy, that it does work. Then you can go back and say, okay, guys, this is what I recommend, and here's the evidence. I think that's quite admirable, because some people would say, well, I know what to do, so here, go do it. Whereas you're taking that better step.
And if you go online and put in Tai Chi for health, you're going to have a ton of studies. There's been studies on Tai Chi about all types of things, but not that many that specifically address PTSD. Yeah. And because I did the work. I mean, there's probably a couple in there, but I couldn't find hardly any that did that. That's why.
Go ahead. I was going to say, and what surprised me when I looked at the statistics is that more women have PTSD. I mean, I thought this was a man's problem, but it isn't.
Oh, when I started police work back in '78, it was just starting to accept minorities. Okay, minority officers. Women in some departments, women were the last to be accepted back there in the late '70s. You can't, and before that. So yes, I totally understand the stress from that perspective. Because as a police officer, a lot of the person-to-person crimes, domestics, had to do with injuries against women and things like that. So I understand that. But the balance, the department needs balance, and I had trying to connect with them on the level that I had some successes and work with things, but not on a large level. You got to start at the top and convince the leaders. Okay, first of all, like from a political perspective, like the mayor, the governor, and then it goes down to the chief of police. So I'm in more of a position to do that now.
Well, I think your work probably with Johns Hopkins is going to be a real breakthrough for in many ways. In fact, why don't you take a moment and just talk about what you've done with
Okay.
Johns Hopkins?
What we did, there's a doctor, the doctor that he's our medical consultant too for my business, the TC Triple MRT part of it and moving stillness. I knew him when he was 16 years old. He came to my Tai Chi class when he was 16. He trained for 2 years, then he went off to medical school, got his undergrad, graduate, MD, PhD, and he specialized in PTSD. Now he gets a hold of me a few years, backtrack a few years from now, prior to now, he contacts me. He still calls me Sifu. Okay? Now, I hadn't seen him in decades. And so he says, he finds out what I'm up to, and he says, let's study with this would be awesome.
Oop.
Interested.
Dan, you just blanked out, but you're back on. So you had gotten as far as he calls you Sifu. And by the way, Sifu means master, yes?
It's teacher or master. It depends on how you use it. But yes, me teacher or master. And he said that the problem that this is a wonderful opportunity because doing something like this with PTSD, the problem would have been either just having a experienced police officer with no Tai Chi background or Tai Chi with no law enforcement background. Yeah. So I had both, decades of both. So they contacted the local department, fire and police in that state. And we had them both on board. And then the fire department jumped right in. And then the police department was on board, but they kind of decided to wait because they wanted to make sure that it wouldn't look like their officers had PTSD. See, if you market the program to prevent PTSD, so no worries. So I worked with firefighters who were diagnosed with PTSD, and they were actually in a healing facility with all kind of different interventions to help them to heal. And I started a couple days a week, and it was a couple times a day. Then it went to twice a week, and then once a day. But this was all online because it was during COVID. And even online, the program, Tai Chi, masters say that Tai Chi is so profound that even if you do it incorrectly, you get benefit. But the more correct, the better the benefit. The problem is, there wasn't a differentiation between traditional Tai Chi and Tai Chi for therapy. So I came up with the aspect of Tai Chi for therapy. And in order to do therapeutic Tai Chi, you can't be caught up in complicated Tai Chi movements, but you must apply the Tai Chi principles every time. Focus on the principles, the stance, and the principles of Tai Chi are the key. And I drill that into every time I teach that. And that's why the program is so successful, because it's using what I call gross motor Tai Chi movements, and patterns. As we know, under fight or flight stress, we can only do gross motor skills. Pushing, from a police officer's perspective, grabbing, pushing, protecting themselves. They can't do any fine motor skills, which would be like doing traditional Tai Chi. So this is what I did. I took 5 movements in order to be able to do this. Picking something up, putting something down, pushing something away from you, bringing something toward you, and then moving something from side to side. Apply the principles and the Tai Chi principles. The participants who I taught were able to experience relaxation within like minutes, 15 minutes. Where in Tai Chi, you're so focused on choreography, it takes time to do that. And I was dealing with, I did a lot with veterans who had injuries and extreme PTSD. And it wasn't until I started doing gross motor Tai Chi patterns that I really started seeing the effects.
What occurs to me, Dan, this is just me. These are motions that are so automatic that your brain doesn't have to work any other than just to do it. So that then gives you more possibilities for what you can do with your body. I think this is so great. I'm beginning to understand, Dan.
Now I want to say, don't get me wrong. traditional Tai Chi is wonderful.
Oh,
and
yeah.
over time, I will take somebody who has extreme PTSD and I'll train people to do this and take them to the point where they can start doing traditional Tai Chi, from a very slow, basic perspective.
Yeah.
So it's the gross motor Tai Chi patterns combined with body, mind, breath. Body, mind, breath together.
Okay. I want to shift this a little bit. My work is also in resilience. And to me, it begins with the definition that resilience lies in the space between stimulus and response, where Frankl said, you've got the power to choose your response.
Yes.
As I consider the work that you do using Tai Chi, your work appears to help prepare a person to be able to move more calmly through the options, because that's what I want to, in the show, I want to show you options, but then you still have to make that choice. I wonder if you'd comment on that aspect.
So making the choice?
Oh, making the choice, just preparing yourself to do it more calmly.
Yes.
Because you have to be able to think in order to be able to choose in those moments. It could be a need for something quick, or sometimes it can be a really tough decision that you may take months to resolve.
Absolutely. Okay, that's wonderful. As soon as emotion gets in, I don't care how slight, it clouds your judgment. Emotion clouds the judgment. And then once that happens, once you start being judgmental, then you've kind of lost the whole thing right there. And then you just proceed with what you're used to.
Yeah.
I recently learned, or not so long ago, learned that 95% of what we do is subconscious. We have done some things so over and over and over again. Our subconscious mind takes us through the day subconsciously about what we've done from repetition for the beginning of our lives and years. So I'd say only about 5% of what we do is conscious. So we're an automatic pilot. Where most of the majority of populations are automatic pilot. So when something happens, you're going to respond with what you're used to. The subconscious mind is going to say, this is what you do, go right or wrong. So in order to be conscious learning about it, that's where the mindful breathing comes in. Just getting in the Tai Chi stance. And one of the things I'll do later is do that to show you that when you're in that stance, your chi is flowing freely and all your internal organs are laying comfortably. So not only just from an internal building perspective of chi, your blood is flowing freely, your organs, everything is working, and then you're working properly. So when you focus on your breath, the mindful breathing, that's done through the nose. So when you do that, it has a direct effect on the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms you down within a matter of a few breaths. So when you come to a situation and you don't choose, talking about choosing to be relaxed, you can want to be relaxed, but choosing to be takes practice. You have to prepare yourself for that. You can want to do it so hard in your mind, then as soon as the stimuli happens, boom, you're right back to what you're used to. Subconscious mind takes over, okay, this is what you do. I try to get people to, just from a simplistic perspective, even sitting up in the chair here, just a nice upright posture, and breathing with your mouth closed, just without anything else. Breathing through your mouth encourages the air to come past the upper lung down to your lower abdomen. Just breathing through your nose. So try to breathe through your nose when you're sitting and relaxing. And when you take a few breaths, that breathing from the abdominal area is what has a direct effect to the parasympathetic nervous system. This breathing up here gets you into fight or flight. Whenever you do extreme workouts, you're working hard, that's fight or flight.
Interesting.
I thought you was going to say.
No.
The physiological changes that occur when you're doing hard exertion exercise are the same as fight or flight. Your heart rate speeds up, your breath speeds up, all those types of changes. So I'm not saying that's bad, because you need to get your heart rate up for it to be healthy. I understand that. But your body wasn't meant to go into fight or flight 20 times a day, every day. That wears and tears on the mind, the spirit, and the body. And I keep those three, mind, body, spirit, because you want to train all of them. just physical training, that engages the mind and it engages the breath and the body, but it's about speed or muscle strength or endurance, which is fine. When you do internal training, you do it with your body relaxed. You learn to relax, right? All the training is on relaxation and softness. And you acquire that by getting in the stance and going into mindful breathing in the stance. Okay, so just being upright in your stance, that's more of an active form of meditation as opposed to just a passive form. Passive form is fine. It allows you to look inward. Where you sit in a lotus position and you meditate, don't get me wrong, that's powerful and it does work. But what I'm talking about is moving mindful meditation, taking that meditation with you anywhere you go. That's where the Tai Chi comes in, because you're in an upright posture that's already active, and then as you move and as you turn your field of vision, you look at a different place of where you're looking at from one side to the other. That's in motion. That's taking you to a different place. As you start to move laterally forward, that trains the body to be able to stay in that relaxed state with the mind engaged, because you need to think about what you're doing. So there's the mindfulness staying in the moment, and you're in motion. You're in motion. So that trains the subconscious mind to lead the body to take this meditative state no matter where you go. So in order to do that, you need that's where the balance of internal training and external training come together.
Okay.
I'll take a break and so I can.
All right. Oh, I love this. I love this. Well, I always ask teenagers to send me questions because they ask different questions.
Yeah.
And I loved this one. And they asked, how does Tai Chi or Qigong or any other martial art heal its practitioners?
Oh, great question. Great question. Okay, first of all, if you check statistics, chronic conditions, I've gotten different numbers. 70 to 90% of chronic conditions are directly due to stress. So first of all, directly due to stress, and that's a huge statement. The lowest I've heard was 70 and the highest was 90. So it's somewhere in there. So with that in mind, when you train the body through breath and mindfulness and moving mindfulness, stationary and moving, to do that every day, pick a specific time to practice and try to do it every day on a regular basis, it starts to become a habit. The subconscious mind, okay, we're used to doing this, I'm gonna grab that. Now that means that when you are in, and the subconscious mind says it doesn't matter whether you're calm or whether nothing's happening or when something exciting happens, you are practicing to stay calm through breath and mindfulness no matter what. So the conscious mind grabs that. And what happens is you are moving a conscious training of breathing and mindfulness and relaxation into your subconscious mind. The mind leads the body. It's not the other way around. If it's not in the mind, whatever the mind says, the body does, first of all. And you can't relax if your mind is full of clutter, or it won't shut down or turn, or slow down, or if it's just experienced trauma. So the breathing and mindful breathing, you are focused on the breath and the posture or the gross motor movements. So you can't think about the trauma. And then the breath has time to work and to relax the mental chatter in the mind. Once the mental chatter is relaxed in the mind, guess what? The body can relax. Now you have relaxation in the mind and body. And every day, at some time of the day, you do this. So the mind says, okay, this is going to be a part of what we do every day. So then the subconscious mind grabs it, and you find yourself in a real excited situation, and you're not excited. But you don't realize until after the fact, oh, I didn't get angry at that time. That means it's in your subconsciousness. And that's where you want to get it. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're riding, you're driving, you're at work, you're in the boss's office, you're training, even in your physical training, your mindfulness makes it safer and it makes it more efficient and it enhances it.
I love it. One of the practices that I have in my work is I tell people for 5 minutes a day, You have to sit in silence. I don't give any other instruction. Just sit in silence. And it's amazing the pushback you get. Well, I don't have 5 minutes. Of course you have 5 minutes. Don't tell me you don't have 5 minutes. And I tell them, I said, now you'll know that this is successful when the 5 minutes are up and you want to stay a little longer.
There you go.
And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, especially by doing it regularly at a particular time in the day, it's almost as if your body figures out, okay, it's time now. And they go into it. Yeah, I like this. It's a nice addition to it, to my practice.
And I take it a little further, though. Get it at a particular time of day, but try to get that mindful breathing a part of your daily routine. That's where you want to get it, okay? If you get it every day, that is very definitely helping it. And it's easier, say like if you do lose your center and you become excited, maybe it won't last as long. Okay?
Yeah.
And then eventually it gets to the point where it doesn't happen at all. But I tell students, so they say, well, how often do I practice? How long do I practice? Well, how long can you stand? Okay, if it's only 10 minutes, practice 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, try to do it 20 minutes to a half hour, say like at a minimum if you can, even 15, but it's the regularity. Once it gets regular, then try to do it several times a day. Now, take it even further. When you wake up in the morning and you sit on the side of the bed, sit up straight, take 3 deep abdominal breaths. Get up, go brush your teeth. Come and sit down for breakfast. Just before you eat, in order to prepare your digestive system for that food, take a couple of mindful breaths. You get in the car before you start to drive. We know how stressful driving can be with the road rage. Before you turn that key, take 3 separate breaths. Take it whenever you think. You can't do it too much. Whenever you think about it, do it. And the thing is, I want to make sure I mention this. The neat thing about this type of training, moving mindfulness meditation, is that it's threefold. It helps to prevent stress. It helps you to deal with stress in the moment, and it's resilience to release and manage the stress afterwards. That one exercise hits you from the beginning, during, and after.
Dan, you just answered my last question to you, which was, do you have any recommendations for the audience? And I think I don't want to ask you to add anything to this. I love this because I'm thinking myself, as an executive, I run a company, right? And I'm shifting from task to task all the time. That's part of the job. And just remembering to take the breath each time I think this is going to transform my day. And I want to send that out to my audience. This is a way that they can really begin to transform their day. And it's so simple. So simple. Everybody can do this. Dan, this has been fabulous. I can talk to you for hours.
I can talk for hours too, so.
Well, but I want to make sure you have time to do what you promised, which is to do an exercise. Now I'm going to put you on full screen so that people can really see the movements. Okay.
Okay. And I know you don't have to be able to see my feet. I'll instruct you every step of the way. So the Tai Chi stance is the most important part of this. So getting in a nice upright stance with your feet shoulder width apart, unlock the knees, and let's just say a nice upright posture with your armpits gently open and your chin is tucked just a little bit. Now take the tip of your tongue, lightly touch the roof of your mouth behind your top 2 front teeth, and relax gaze with the eyes. From this posture, I want you to turn the palms forward, and I'm going to turn sideways first so you can see what I'm doing exactly. Okay. And as you breathe in, let the arms float up at the shoulder or at the shoulder. Keep your elbows slightly bent, still breathing in. You breathe out, slowly lower the palms all the way down to the sides of your legs. Maintain the posture. That's critical. Breathe in. On the inhalation, you rise. Breathe out. On the exhalation, you fall. From the front, breathe in, maintaining that Tai Chi stance, in and out through the nose. Breathe out. One more, breathe in, and breathe out. All the way down, turn the palms in and pause. Now that seems simple, okay? But holding that posture, that tip of the tongue, that makes a connection to the circulation that controls all the flow of chi in the body. The meridians called the grand circulation. That's why that tip of the tongue is there. In and out through the nose directly accesses the parasympathetic nervous system, which relaxes you. So you have a lot of control when you really think about it. One more time in that posture, and breathe in. It's like water lifting up your arms. Still inhaling as you turn the palms down, and breathe out all the way down. Turn the palms inward, pause, breathe normal, and mindfully notice that your mind is quieting. And mindfully notice that your body is relaxed. Okay. That was a very simple exercise, but very powerful. Learning how to, throughout your day, something happens, breathe in, breathe out. Controlling and releasing that stress. Stress is cumulative.
That was so awesome. I did it with you.
Oh,
And
you. It's
I
not hard.
couldn't, no. And the other thing is you can remember it. It's, I mean, I, as you know, I've done Pilates for years and years.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I do Pilates is because it never bores me, because you cannot remember the routines. And when you think you've gotten it memorized, your instructor throws in yet another of the hundreds of exercises that he has. So this is so nice. I can remember it, and it's very natural. You know, you're okay. I'll stop.
I call that a ground.
I think this is so great for my audience. They're people that are generally between the ages of mostly, not all, but mostly between about 25 and 54. You're in the midst of the prime of your work life, and you want to succeed. And this is such a simple way to assure that through that process, you not only are probably thinking better when you do it, but your body's working better. So it doesn't drag you down at moments, which, I mean, I've suffered that where, okay, all of a sudden my body said, you're not working anymore for a while, kid, until I heal. Oh, my life is interesting. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I wonder, 2 minutes, any further last comments you want to make to the audience?
Okay. Well, always live and train in everything you do from a holistic perspective. That means whole. Your mind is engaged, your body is engaged, and your spirit is engaged, because when it makes you feel good, then your spirit is uplifted. So holistic just means whole. And I also like to share something that my first internal Kung Fu teacher or master, it's the motto of the school that we used to do when I studied Wing Chun Temple Boxing and became Sifu. This was our motto: flow with the flow, change with the change, dance the dance, and become one.
Thank you, Dan.
You're most welcome.
I've picked up so many wonderful things. I love this point that emotion crowds our judgment. I loved that statement, and that breathing is key to be conscious, to keep you conscious of what's happening around you. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wow. I thought that was really exciting. And I think for me, I know there's some things I'm going to change already. All right, let's see. What do we have here? You know, when I talk about resilience, lying in the space between stimulus and response, between challenge and how you decide to move forward, it's really essential to be able to think about the options from which you will choose. And today you learned a great deal about how you can prepare yourself to think clearly in these moments. I mean, all of my practices do that, but this was really beautifully concise, to be able to act then from the an internal calm. So if you feel stressed or burned out or at your wits' end, you now have strategies and practices and forms that you can employ. I mean, I'm feeling calmer already. And I particularly appreciated that Johns Hopkins has done this research. And if you're listening from another part of the world, Johns Hopkins is one of the top medical centers in our country, and I suspect the world. So I'm very pleased that they are the group that has focused on bringing this kind of work into healing the body. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unlocked. And if you did, make a comment in social media about what you learned and might do differently as a result. And if you're on YouTube, click the like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. I'm Madeline Blair. And I must say, I truly am wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilience.